City of Adelaide Council meeting on Tuesday, 13 August 2024. The Lord Mayor is in the chair. This council meeting will be streamed live and recorded for publishing to the internet. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the Council, including transferring outside Australia.
Good evening. Council acknowledges that we're meeting on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pays respects to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. We also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations people who may be with us tonight. The Council acknowledges the vision of Colonel William Light in determining the site for Adelaide and the design of the city with its 6 squares and surrounding belt of continuous parklands, which is recognised on the National Heritage List as one of the greatest examples of Australia's planning heritage. We pray for wisdom, courage, empathy, understanding and guidance in the decisions that we make while seeking and respecting the opinions of others. May we in this meeting speak honestly, listen attentively, think clearly and decide wisely for the good governance of the City of Adelaide and the well-being of those we serve. I now ask all those present to stand in silence in memory of those who gave their lives in defence of their country, at sea, on land and in the air. Firstly, apologies and leave of absence. We have an apology from Councillor Lee and a late apology from Councillor Davis. Could I ask someone if they would move the minutes from the meeting of the 23rd? Moved by Councillor Abrahimzadeh, seconded by Councillor Siebentritt. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest to be made this evening? No. In that case, we will move on. Thank you. Deputations. We've had several deputations at the committee, and tonight we'll have 2 deputations speaking in opposite directions. Firstly, could I ask Dr. Tony Stimpson to speak about the Boer War Memorial, or the South African War Memorial, I should say. Thank you. Mr. Simpson, we have 5 minutes for the deputation. Please address us in that time.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor and councillors. I speak tonight as President of the South Australian Boer War Association and as an authority on the South African War Memorial, but I want to acknowledge at the outset the RSL and in particular Major Ian Smith, who's here this evening, for their long-standing opposition to adding Harry Morant's name to the memorial. Now, it's true Morant did serve honourably with the South Australian Mounted Rifles. Where we disagree is the applicant's claim that this service in itself warrants him to having a plaque on this memorial. Let me read to you briefly from a letter from Major General Brian Dawson to Veterans SA. He is Assistant Director of the Australian War Memorial and National Authority on such matters. And he writes, "There is no centralised authority for war memorials in Australia. Morant and Hancock's inclusion on other memorials around Australia is solely at the discretion of the custodians of the memorial in question and that memorial's eligibility criteria." In other words, the practice elsewhere is irrelevant. There is no one-size-fits-all for war memorials, as the applicant maintains. For example, the Renmark Board names 18 men who served in South Africa, Morant amongst them, as it is a record of the men who enlisted there. But to suggest that his name should therefore appear on the Adelaide Memorial is to compare apples with oranges. For the magnificent memorial outside Government House, erected in 1904 and gifted to the City of Adelaide by the National Memorial Fund and funded entirely by the people of South Australia, is a state memorial, and the criterion for a man's name to appear on its plaques could never be service alone. Why? Because about 1,530 men enlisted here, and there simply wasn't space to list everyone on the memorial. But the solution the civic worthies came up with in 1904 was brilliant. The two main plaques, they said, would list 59 men who enlisted here and died honourably on active service. And on the stonework above the plaques, a wreath would read, "Who dies for his country dies nobly." As it was, they battled to squeeze in 59 names on those plaques, much less 1,530. But they wanted to honour those men too. So they commissioned a third plaque, acknowledging in general terms the service of all our citizen soldiers, and a parchment scroll bearing the name of every man who enlisted here. This scroll, they said, was to be placed in a niche in the pedestal as a sort of time capsule, and they made a point of asking the Governor to refer to it as he spoke at the unveiling. This he did. None of this is conjecture. The history of this memorial is remarkably well documented. In short, Harry Morant was one of about 1,500 men who did not meet the eligibility criterion for naming on the plaques, but whose service was recognised on the memorial and in the memorial. There was no conspiracy to dud poor old Breaker. Yet this application singles out Morant's service as somehow specially deserving recognition with his own plaque. No one else is so privileged. Take Trooper Tom Kermode, shot 3 times at Groot Valley, awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal. Tom would often visit North Terrace, reflecting sadly on the dispute he had with Frank Hamp over a packet of Quaker's Oats the night before the fight. Hamp was killed and is on the memorial, but as Tom reflected, "I could swap places with pleasure, for he will be remembered when I am forgotten." So let's be under no illusions about what a yes vote means. A plaque honouring Harry Morant, whom the Australian War Memorial says, unambiguously, was, I quote, "guilty of a war crime for executing civilians like Rolf van Staden and his 2 sons, one a desperately sick 12-year-old on their way to hospital, and who freely acknowledged what he had done." So a plaque for him, but no plaque for a bona fide hero like Tom Kermode and countless others. Where's the fairness in that? What reputational damage does it stand to do to our city to add such a man's name? Of course, Tom's grandson may seek similar recognition, and a precedent once set, it's difficult to see how council could reject such applications without a legal nightmare following. Mind you, do we really want all our state memorials cluttered with plaques honouring the service of this or that trooper? As Major Smith said last week, the implications of a yes vote are far-reaching, as the naming practice adopted in 1904 was adopted for all subsequent state war memorials. There are other problems with the application. Thank you, Lord Mayor. There are other problems with this application. We're told Morant is named on the National Boer War Memorial. Nobody is named on it. He's one of a small number of veterans profiled on an associated website, but as General Dawson says, and I quote, "This list of soldiers is not a nominal roll or a roll of honour and should not be interpreted as such." We're told Morant was promoted to sergeant while serving with the South Australians. He was not, at least according to a report that the contingent's commanding officer prepared for and was published by Parliament. We're told the steps are not part of the memorial, so a plaque positioned there does not associate Morant with it. This is disingenuous. Look at the photograph in your papers showing the proposed location of the plaque and tell me it's not on the memorial. As for the veterans, it's telling they did not once agitate to add Morant's name in 70 years. And I say this from a decade-long search of the primary sources. As late as 1964, They wrote to the RSL to reaffirm that they were not prepared to revisit the matter. And who are we to know better than these men and the men and women who in good faith presented this magnificent memorial to the city 120 years ago? Let's not rewrite history to accommodate a legend. One final point. I support the idea of an interpretive panel positioned near the memorial, provided the text is determined under the auspices of the History Trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr Simpson. Councillor.
A point of clarification just for our deputy. A vote in favour tonight is in fact a vote in favour of the administration's recommendation, which is in fact
yes.
the status quo,
yes.
Opposing
Quite so.
the name being
Thank you.
Just for clarification.
Yes,
apologies.
thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you, Dr Simpson. I wonder if I could now call on Mr Adam Pearce, who speaks in support of the application. Thank you. Again, 5 minutes, Mr Pearce.
Dear Lord Mayor and councillors of the City of Adelaide, my deputation respectfully submits that the recommendation made to the committee last week did not consider the entire proposal put forward, and therefore the committee was not made fully aware of all the options on which to vote on last week. The most important clarification to make is that the proposal to add a plaque in the footpath nearby the memorial does not in any way seek to alter, amend at all the memorial itself. Now this is distinct to putting something in the steps of the memorial as well. This is a proposal for a plaque nearby in the footpath. It's very important. The executive summary in the recommendation to committee correctly summarised the entire proposal as including an additional plaque, and I quote, on ground adjacent to the memorial and associated interpretive material. Following this, the recommendation to the committee did not address or discuss any information on the merits of a plaque and interpretive display in the footpath. After correctly defining the entire proposal, the recommendation considered only amending or altering the proposal by having a plaque on the steps. There was no consideration of a plaque or interpretive display in the ground near the memorial. The executive summary correctly noted the important cultural significance of the memorial, and that can't be disputed. But that is only relevant when considering or amending the memorial. Time and time again, the wording was only focused on amending. Paragraph 51 does not provide consent to amend or alter the memorial. Paragraph 17, a new plaque on the granite steps of the memorial. Paragraph 17.2, the proposal seeks to embed the plaque on the steps of the memorial. There is no consideration, and therefore the vote of the committee did not consider a plaque and interpretive display in the ground nearby the memorial. I submit tonight it's appropriate for this approach to be properly considered and voted on. The proposal section in the recommendation obviously needed to consider both elements that the recommendation used to define the proposal earlier in the executive summary, one of them being in the footpath nearby. However, the recommendation only considered altering. The recommendation referenced heritage consent provided by the Department for Environment and Water by its principal heritage architect. It mentioned that the heritage consent provided conditional support to add a plaque on the steps of the memorial, but the recommendation did not mention that the heritage consent also suggested an option for a plaque in the paving nearby. The heritage consent provided, again quoted, the memorial will be physically unaffected as a proposed plaque is to be fixed on the base steps or on the paving nearby. This last element was not included in the recommendation. There were two approaches put forward in the heritage consent, but the recommendation only addressed one of them. Therefore, only one approach was considered by the committee last week and voted on. Further, the heritage consent set out a condition that the final details of the location of the plaque itself and interpretive material are to be confirmed in consultation with and subject to the approval of the City of Adelaide. So the location itself is up for discussion and debate. Consultation regarding a plaque and an interpretive display in the footpath, therefore, is missing, and it needs to be considered tonight. The recommendation repeatedly referenced the monument being a closed historical point of significance. A plaque and interpretive display in the ground nearby does not conflict with this. The recommendation placed significant weight on various passages which deal only with altering the memorial. They mentioned subsequently the following is adopted by the original committee: no further names to be added to the memorial. The proposal seeks to make material and cultural impacts to the memorial, altering aesthetic, architectural, cultural and historical significance. It is recommended the memorial continue to be treated as a closed historical monument. No further proposals to alter or amend be considered. The proposal to put a plaque in the footpath nearby is not seeking to open the memorial at all. No, I've got another one page. That's okay. Thank you. I won't be long. The nearby footpath proposal is not seeking to open it up. I'm saying it's appropriate and consistent with the concerns raised in the recommendation, Mr Stimpson and Major Smith. The memorial can be left untouched to preserve the sanctity of those who fell by having Morant recognised nearby in the footpath, as expressly put forward in the heritage consent. The suggestion that Morant's peers did not favour his cause and that he wasn't supported is not provided by any evidence. In fact, these following facts demonstrate that there was considerable support for Morant by people who served. Morant's BVC commanding officer, Major Lenihan, physically appeared before the Prime Minister of the time to advise him what happened, and amazingly, that was the first time anyone in Australia had been advised. 80,000 people, including returned soldiers who served with Morant, successfully petitioned the British government to have Whitten's life sentence commuted. Morant is also on the honour roll at Renmark, Hancock is on the Bathurst Memorial, and as Mr Stimpson said, Morant's on the online National Memorial. It's been rightfully asked why Morant deserves unique treatment and not the other 1,400. Well, Morant did not return from his service. He was subjected to rather unique treatment by death by firing squad. There's no doubt his own actions contributed to this, but there is significant doubt about whether he was acting autonomously or whether he was following orders. What cannot be doubted at all is that his court-martial was undertaken hastily and he was executed before anyone in Australia was advised of what was happening. He was entitled to a fair court-martial and he was not afforded it. And as I said, amazingly, this occurred before anyone in Australia was made aware. Morant died not in the field of war, but in the theatre of war. He won't be interfering with the legacy of the brave men who fell in South Africa by being on a footpath nearby. He did, however, meet his fate in South Africa and did not return to Australia. This put Morant in a unique category, and I submit he should be dealt with uniquely.
Thank you, Mr Pearce. Can I thank you, both of the deputies, for the clarity of their presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So there were several other requests to make deputations. I suggested originally that we should only have one from each side. Can I accept support from the Chamber on that, or would you like to? Deputy Lord Mayor?
I move that we stick to one from each side, Lord Mayor. We stick to one from each side for the sake of equity.
Is there still support for that movement? Then no action. Councillor New? You're in favour? Oh. So leave is not being sought. That's the important thing to change. So we'll carry on as before. I'm sorry, sir. We've decided that only one speaker from each side of the debate should join us this evening. So thank you. I'm sorry? Yes, we have received one petition with 23 signatories. It's in your meeting folder. Could I ask if someone would move receipt of the petition, moved by the Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favour? Those against? That's thank you, members. We've received the petition. As it happens, the next item on the agenda, item 11, is this matter. So I'll take this item in two parts so that we can debate them separately. Item 7.1, which is a recommendation from the committee to council. Could I ask for a mover of that? Councillor Giles, you're moving as printed?
Yes, I'll move as printed.
Seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Giles?
Only very briefly to say that we've considered this issue on a number of occasions. We've heard extensively from people on both sides of the argument, and it was clear last meeting at the committee meeting that councillors unanimously supported the recommendation of administration, who's been working on this issue for some time, and I urge us to continue to oppose this.
Seconder wish to... Would anybody like to contribute to the debate or speak against the motion? No? In that case, I think we could sum up, if you wish to. Councillor Giles? If there's no other discussion, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour as printed? All those against? That's carried unanimously again. Can I thank the representatives for their commitment to this cause? I'm sure it's not over yet.
Yes, so Lord Mayor, as Chair of the committee, I'd like to move this recommendation, which was discussed at the committee. I don't think I have anything else to add. I think it was canvassed well at the committee.
Which is item 12. That's Councillor Noon's committee. Would you like to take it on block, or would you like to speak to them separately?
Separately, because there is an amendment to one of the recommendations of the city plan.
So I'm just trying to work out which ones. I'm just trying to work out where we are now. Part 2 is the city plan. So we'll do recommendation 1 first, and you're moving as printed with the amendment. I'm not actually sure what that means. I'm sorry.
Lord Mayor, could the mover perhaps speak to the amendment?
Can you just help us, Councillor Noon?
Okay. So basically, this recommendation is accepting the consultation summary, which is point 1. Point 2 is just to... I have been contacted by members of the community who just would like still an opportunity to discuss the city plan, and the recommendation that we put forward at committee did not really spell that out, so they've asked if that can be spelt out more. If there's another way of saying this, I'm quite happy to, I'm open to suggestions, but it basically is a very important report. There's a lot of work that's been gone into this, amazing work, the administration and everybody else, and it is unusual that it's gone to committee to accept the consultation process, and then it actually goes back to committee and then back to council. So there is that period of time, and there's still community members that would like to discuss further the city plan. And it's just spelling that out so that people still have the opportunity to be able to to do that if they wish before it goes to committee and then it goes to council again in September.
Sorry, could I just seek clarification from the administration? I'm a bit confused because my understanding was the consultation had closed. Have I misunderstood something?
Through the presiding member, the consultation has closed.
May I just ask a question that may help us here? I think the mover actually means that point 2 confirms that council will be given the time to consider any further feedback, that is the elected body, in the time between now and when it comes back to council, not the state government. And if that is her intent, then I support that.
I don't think we can accept an amendment that implies that we're opening the consultation again. That's what's worrying me.
I think it is the council, that is the point. I think the mover means the council.
Yeah, I do, and I apologise. I did send this through to administration. I was quite happy for them to actually change it to reflect that it is the opportunity for us as a council to be able to look at that consultation again. There might be points that need strengthening. Not so much to change, but to strengthen and that's what the community, some of the community members, especially in North Adelaide, are actually looking for. There are certain areas of the city plan that they feel that could be strengthened more.
Can I just tell you that I'm not sure that this is clear enough to make to give instructions to the administration. I just think that, as I keep saying, a motion has to offer clarity and be unambiguous. I just need it to be tidied up. Can someone assist?
And I did send that through.
I know, I'm sorry, Councillor, I'm not
albeit late, no, it was late, and administration, I did actually ring and discuss this.
So what I believe, I'm sorry to just try and interpret this, but I think that what you want is the council to receive the consultation. Don't you want the council, through its committee system, to consider the feedback further before finally endorsing the plan? Is that what we mean?
Yes. Thank you. Sorry. I knew there was a better way of saying it.
Well, I actually, to be frank, I think that we don't need to do it because we're going to do that anyway, but I think it needs to be
And
clear.
I did actually communicate that to the people that were concerned. But they were sort of wanting it articulated better in the actual recommendation.
So how about we just get an administrative commitment, undertaking that there will be an opportunity for council to reconsider the data? Would that be sufficient for you, Councillor?
I will second that, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
Through the presiding member, just in terms of seeking clarity, the point's already been made that the public consultation process regarding the city plan has closed, and that was the subject of the report to committee. If we're creating the opportunity for further community feedback to inform the final decision, what time frame will that occur within?
I think
I'm struggling with the intent of the... Yeah.
I don't think we can accept the motion if we don't know what it means. I'm sorry.
I think it is more about clarification on the actual city plan and how we've interpreted maybe the consultation, the feedback that we've received, maybe just, and that, I mean, the fact that we're actually giving this extra time and it's already gone to committee, it's gone to council tonight to accept the consultation process. This is a little bit unusual. And then it actually goes, well, so I've been told I've got a bit of white noise in the background here, but I have been advised by administration that this is unusual, and that at the end of the day, it then actually goes then again to committee and then again to council. And so it gives an opportunity for people to seek clarification, to have more of their questions answered through through their consultation process. If that is saying not meaning what that is, then I'm happy for further wording.
Can I just suggest that we don't put this motion up because it implies the consultation may be reopening, and that would be bad process. I think we should accept the administration's undertaking that the report from the consultation will return to the committee and council, and we will have a further opportunity to examine it. Isn't that the most proper thing to do?
What I'm hearing is that a desire for the administration to provide clarity regarding the feedback received through the consultation process and ensure that that's addressed in the final report.
That is very elegant.
So I'd be happy to provide that undertaking to the chamber, that the administration will ensure that clarity is provided regarding feedback received through consultation process in the final report to committee in September, and I'd welcome input from council members direct to the Director City Shaping, Mr Ilya Harides, to that end.
I'm sorry you've been delayed with this, Councillor Noon. Are you happy with that outcome? Thank you. And now, Councillor Martin.
If the amendment is failing because of a lack of a seconder, I will move it as printed and accept the assurance of the administration with the seconder, if that's okay. Just for the sake of clarity.
We've given an undertaking, Councillor.
I have the undertaking of the administration. I'm happy about that. And, Lord Mayor, if I can just clarify, I think the intent of the councillor is that many of us spoke at committee offering suggestions.
Lord Mayor, point of order. Is this in relation to talking to the motion, or where are we
I'm just trying to determine.
Because I know that we had a move and a seconder.
Thank you for your help, Councillor.
Thank you.
Are you happy with the undertaking, Councillor Martin?
Lord Mayor, I said that,
yes.
And I'll repeat it for Councillor Kouros.
No, we don't.
I understood that, but we're
stop
looking...
it, Councillor Kouros. Stop it, Councillor Martin. Let's just move forward.
Okay, well, let's move forward.
Let's move forward, and I think Councillor Noon is happy to accept an undertaking from the administration. Could we not move with that?
I think what I said, Lord Mayor, is that in the absence of a seconder for Councillor Noon's amendment, I will move as printed. The Deputy Lord Mayor says he'll second.
Sorry. Thank you.
And on that basis, I'm saying to the room, I'm happy with the motion and I'm happy with the undertaking from the administration. I was providing some clarity for Councillor Kouros and others in that during the course of the committee meeting, there was a great deal of discussion about the content of the city plan and a view expressed by many, including me, that there needed to be some refinements to what is an otherwise excellent document. And those things relate to matters of human scale. Lord Mayor, you weren't there, but there was a discussion about how members of the community believe that though it's a spatial plan, the absence of references to human scale development and human scale planning was an issue and something that the administration might consider. Further, there was a great deal of confusion around many of the terms expressed through the document and specifically where they were planning terms. Now, there's no argument this is a planning document. It is about planning for the future of Adelaide. But in order for this to have the currency that it needs in the community, the acceptance of the community, it was suggested that a glossary providing an interpretation of the terms would assist us in ensuring that the community is with us. So, with the administration's endorsement of the opportunity to speak again, the chance to reflect on the amendments that may or may not be made as a consequence of the committee meeting, I am happy to endorse the proposal as put.
Thank you for helping us out of this quagmire. I'm so grateful. I don't know if your seconder wants to speak. I think... Is there anybody going to speak against it? Why don't we put it to the vote while we're all in furious agreement? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. I'm sorry I made that more difficult than was necessary. Councillor Noon, recommendation 2 and 3, would you like to do them together? Yes. Moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members.
There was a fourth.
I missed the fourth. I'm so sorry. 4 is the outdoor dining, and I should just say we've had a declaration of conflict, but it's a general conflict, and I'm sorry? No. Oh, not for this one, it's another one, sorry. Recommendation 4, Councillor Noon, would you be happy to move that, the outdoor dining? Seconded by Councillor Martin again. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. And the next item is I'm going to have to vacate the chair for item 13. Could I ask if the DLM would be prepared to come and take my chair? Thank you.
Thank you, members. Item 13.1, the nomination for Local Government Association President. We have one recommendation before us that approves the nomination of Lord Mayor Dr. Jane Lomax-Smith for a position of Local Government Association of SA President. I'll seek a mover and a seconder. I see Councillor Noon as mover. Seconder, I see Councillor Sebentrit. Would your mover like to speak?
Yes. I'm delighted to see that the Lord Mayor, Dr. Jane Lomax-Smith, has agreed to be nominated for the position of President of the Local Government Association of South Australia. As the Lord Mayor's LGA proxy and someone who's had extensive interaction with the LGA over the past 15 years, I believe that Dr. Lomax-Smith is exceptionally well suited for the role. Her rich and diverse background, particularly her experience in state and local governments, as well as federal government and business sectors and diverse community groups, makes her an ideal candidate. Dr. Lomax-Smith's potential appointment would be historically significant. If selected, she would be the first Lord Mayor to be appointed as President of the LGA since 1968. I'm not sure if it went back further than that. This is a rare opportunity as the metropolitan position on the LGASA does not come up for consideration for another 4 years due to the alternating nature of the role being between metro and regional representatives. Therefore, this nomination presents a unique and timely opportunity for the City of Adelaide. It is essential to emphasise the pivotal role the capital cities like Adelaide play in the realm of local government. Capital cities are often seen as quasi-leaders in the state, influencing and interacting with numerous local government areas across the region. The City of Adelaide's leadership and initiatives often set benchmarks and serve as examples for other councils, hopefully mostly good. Currently, Mayor Dean Johnson from Kimber, the serving president of the LGA, has been focusing on advocacy and housing affordability and supply, issues that are also great importance to our city. Many of the association's priorities are aligned with those of the City of Adelaide. This alignment creates a perfect synergy, especially within the greater regional plan and our comprehensive city plan in place. Some might be concerned that taking on the role of President of the LGA could compromise Dr. Lomax-Smith's responsibilities as the current Lord Mayor. However, this is not the case. Much of what she does as Lord Mayor aligns closely with the priorities of the LGA President. I am confident that she will set new priorities that will complement both roles seamlessly, enhancing her ability to serve the community effectively in both capacities. I see this as a positive and would only strengthen the current Lord Mayor's role. With Dr. Lomax-Smith at the helm of the LGA, both local government areas and the state would have the best chance for enhanced alignment and stronger connections. Her leadership would drive significant process and foster deeper collaboration across the board. I hope that we see a unanimous vote here tonight. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Councillor Noon. Would the seconder like to speak?
I will very briefly, Deputy Lord Mayor. I don't have a speech lined up like Councillor Noon. That was very impressive. But just a couple of key points for me. One of them is I'll be supporting this because of the Lord Mayor's extensive experience in the local government sector, not just now, but I think going historically, and that ability to look back and then look into the current conditions is really important for the situation that many councils across the state are in. A second point is that experience at a state government level. I think we're at a point with lots of councils across the state where we need to, as we see, as we go through things like asset management plans, asset plan renewal, greater partnerships with the state government, that connection, understanding of how state government works is essential. And the final point would be, I expect for the Lord Mayor often that she sits there listening to our discussions and doesn't necessarily agree with everything that we put forward, but she does listen to the discussion and helps guide us along to a point where we can move forward. And I think that's not only valuable here in this chamber, but it'll also be helpful for the Local Government Association of SA. And for those reasons, I support the nomination.
Thank you, Councillor. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? I'll just quickly say from the Chair then that it's my understanding that there's been a lot of support from neighbouring councils, not just neighbouring councils, councils across the state and mayors from across the state for our Lord Mayor to step into this position, which is a wonderful thing to see. So with that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Welcome the Lord Mayor back into the room.
For chairing the meeting so well. Thank you. I'm now going to move on to the next item, which is the Local Government Finance Authority, and ask the CEO if he would be prepared to vacate his chair. Oh, sorry.
This is just to appoint you as representative.
Oh, I'm awfully sorry. This is the one for the LGFA AGM. I apologise. This has no remuneration or reason for me to declare anything but a general conflict. So moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. And now the next item is 13.3, which is endorsing the nomination. And I'll ask Mr Sedgman to vacate his chair.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. While I'm out of the chair, I'll ask Mr Spartalis to support the meeting on this item.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I ask someone to move this? Moved by Councillor Giles, seconded by Councillor Noon. This is to call in the call for nominations to endorse the nomination of the CEO. If there's any discussion? No? No? Councillor Giles?
I'll only just say my understanding is that Mr Sedgman's had long experience and been involved in this area before, and he's highly regarded in relation to financial matters in local government.
I would endorse that. Councillor Martin?
Lord Mayor, I'm assuming that Mr Sedgman's happy about this.
He is indeed.
Oh, good. Otherwise it would seem cruel and unusual punishment.
It's always dangerous to leave a room and be nominated for something. But can I ask if we can vote on that matter now? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Now we have a proposed item for the AGM, 13.4, but we'll get Mr Sedgman back. Thank you very much. Can I ask, I think that Councillor Noon, would you be happy to move this? Yes. Seconded by Councillor Elliott. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Noon?
Look, I'm putting this forward because I know that I actually saw it as I was reading the final draft of the Economic Development Plan, and I actually thought, well, this is not just a city issue, this is very much a statewide issue. And I thought this was a really good one for us to actually drive through the Local Government Association process as AGM, and I know we've only got to the 31st of August to submit. And that doesn't mean to say, because this was an item that we actually chose that we would lead and AIDA would support, so I actually think that that doesn't sort of take away from the fact that we still do that, but it actually just adds another level of support if we get this through.
speak against that motion? Oh, Councillor Martin?
No, not speaking against it, Lord Mayor. I'd never speak against a local government association AGM, or for it, in fact. But it does occur to me that the council has made significant reputations both to government and the LGA previously, and it's a criticism of me for not raising it, but I just wonder why we're not mentioning the foregone revenue from properties occupied by state government in South Australia, across South Australia. We've already understood that the Local Government Association has prepared a paper on the matter, and though it may be a difficult case to argue, it certainly doesn't harm for it to be on an agenda for an AGM.
Councillor Moon has been very active in this space, and you're right, it isn't just our council area. There are other inner city councils who have a substantial number of community housing buildings and government offices. Councillor Moon?
Just to give you a quick update, I spoke to the CEO of the Local Government Association at the recent conference about this paper, because they will be delivering this and presenting this to the council. At the moment, it's just going through an internal process. So that is happening. It's an amazing paper, and I actually think it's going to make a difference, but it is happening. So just trust the process at this stage.
So I think we've now just closed the debate. And unless you have any other comments, shall we put that to the vote? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. So my report is that I'm really pleased to be back after a week away. As you know, we hosted a delegation from Georgetown, Penang just before Christmas, and this is our return visit to celebrate the 50th anniversary. Our cities were linked historically and by the dynastic link of the lights, of course. I was interested whilst there to see the shared interests included managing climate change, heritage conservation and strategic planning for the future, and it was interesting to see that although our cities superficially appear quite different, we have the similar issues to address and we're moving in the same direction. I'll provide a full report on the delegation and the activities and both the opportunities I saw for the future and the outcomes that I think we could achieve in the short term. So that will be completed in a few weeks. Before going overseas, I attended the free Last Lap Fun Day event, as did several members of council. Only one, at the Adelaide Aquatic Centre. I had my last swim. I'm not sure who else did. More than 800 people enjoyed the event. It was a mix of nostalgia and excitement. Clearly, there were many people who were sad to see the pool go. Professional and Olympic athletes who had trained there, and ordinary mortals like us who had swum in it many times. I particularly thank the staff who had worked so well, and congratulate Mr. Haridis, who'd worked to make sure that all the staff were employed into the future and transitioned into their new lives with smooth organisational feats. I also launched the City of Adelaide's Adaptive Reuse City Housing Initiative, affectionately known as ARCHIE, and the project offers property owners and developers guides about how to do it and the challenges they will face, as well as a commitment to assist through our triage system. There were also a series of grants made available, not just our heritage and sustainability grants, but specific grants for conversions to residential accommodation. In addition, the Minister Champion and several members of Council were present at the Parklands stakeholder event at Light ADL, and that was the draft Adelaide Parklands Management Strategy, which I know many of you have looked at and have commented upon. Over 3,000 people have looked at the draft document, and we're looking forward to the feedback from all those comments, and that will come back to Council in the next few weeks. Finally, I launched the AusAsia Festival and the program has become... Sorry. It seems a bit mean to stop me already. The calendar has been released, and I recommend it to you. One of the highlights of last year's festival, of course, was their Other Worlds festival element, which was a literary festival. And what was interesting then was we had 3 writers from the Georgetown Literary Festival, and that was part of our 50th anniversary celebrations. I hope that we might get more of those exchanges in the future. So could I ask someone to move my report? Moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Giles. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. I now move on to item 16. Oh, the Councillor's reports. I apologise. Councillor Elliott.
I assumed you would provide a summary for Council on the delegation to Penang, so I won't go into too much detail, only to mention some of the notable highlights of the time that we spent there. We spent a lot of time having discussions and conversations with a number of institutions in Penang alongside the City Council, including the think tank Penang Institute, the Penang Hill Corporation, which manages a whole range of facilities in a massive tourist complex at the top of Penang Hill, which is host to a biosphere. And the parallels around those kind of spaces with our parklands are astounding. And as we progressed from there through the delegation, we found the parallels between our two cities just simply kept on growing, which reinforced the strength of the 50-year relationship that we had. Again, I won't go into too much detail, but the equivalent of their city plan, Penang 3030, had a lot of very similar visions and echoed a lot of the similar challenges that we're facing here, with focuses on urban greening and cooling and looking towards a more sustainable, future-based transport network, which people were consistently asking for, including for reallocation of street space to either pedestrians or to sustainable transport. But also the challenges of it is a challenging stock of heritage buildings there, as is here, and very few resources in order to maintain or retain them, and having to find creative ways in order to encourage people to cherish their heritage and invest in it. But at the core of that plan was livability, and making livability an economic, or recognising livability as an economic enabler. And whilst we had that in our city plan and in our climate adaptation strategy, it was kind of spread across quite a few different areas, but that was a simple tenet that they placed at the centre. I'll sum up by saying that whilst we had so many different discussions and reinforced a whole range of relationships with the council as an institution and with members of council and staff individually, I feel that what we actually achieved over the last 4 or 5 days will take some time to evidence itself. And I say that on the basis that it's 9 months now since the delegation from Penang visited here, and it's enough time that has passed that they are implementing and starting to see the effects of the ideas and lessons that they learnt here. So I think within the next 9 to 12 months, after we've had a range of discussions and have started to test some of the ideas that we've learnt over the last 4 or 5 days, will start to bear fruit, and then we'll be able to judge the success of this trip. I will say that I've, as a member of the delegation, did receive a number of gifts and items, and I'm summing up, Lord Mayor, if I'll just have 15 more seconds. And as they relate to the milestone of 50 years between Georgetown and Adelaide, I'll be donating those items to the Civic Collection for posterity.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And we're very fortunate to send yourself and Councillor Elliott over to Penang to represent our fine city to our wonderful sister city of Georgetown. I took up the mantle of acting Lord Mayor, and I finally understand a small taste of the day-to-day busyness of your life, so I appreciate that opportunity to do so. And I must admit, we've known for some time that this delegation was occurring, so therefore I know that the diary was intentionally slimmed for that matter, and so it was still quite a whirlwind of a week for myself, so I tip my hat off to you, so to speak. I represented the city and yourself at multiple events. I'll just give a small taste of that. No particular order, but on the morning of the 6th of August, at 8 o'clock in the morning, I attended the Hiroshima Vigil in North Adelaide and paid my respects to those who died in the bombing of Hiroshima and that of Nagasaki in 1945. And I will say it was a very, very solemn event, and it was well attended for the earliness of the hour. On Friday the 2nd of August, sorry, just checking my notes, I attended the Australian Institute of Building South Australia and Northern Territory Awards, Professional Awards of Excellence at Sky City. And I want to say congratulations to all the nominees and award winners. Of course, once again, acknowledging my slight bias to those developments and buildings which occurred within the City of Adelaide, of which there were several award winners. I attended an event at the Botanic Gardens called Herding Caterpillars, which was a very, very unique interactive experience which invoked theatre, virtual reality, and a whole host of other kind of interactive style activities, explaining the life of the checkered copper butterfly, if I got it right, which we now know, thankfully, is making a steady recovery, still endangered, but a steady recovery in our parklands, most notably, of course, in Victoria Park and in the southeast parklands. It's a good opportunity to introduce people of all ages, I might add, but it's suitable for young families as well to teach kids, young children, about the wonders of our parklands, the wonders of 2 more minutes, I will be fast, I promise. Thank you. I will have to move on fast. I've also attended a wonderful launch, a solar event of Organic Visions at the Bearded Dragon Gallery in Gaze Arcade. This gallery is run by Community Bridging Services at CBS Incorporated, and it is ran by people with disabilities, and it displays the artwork of those with disabilities as well, and it gives a significant, a more than a typical rate of return to the artist for their work. So it's a wonderful cause. That artwork will be available it's still available for purchase. I encourage people to go along, have a look. If you see something you like, maybe purchase and support. And I just want to thank Community Bridging Services for their kind invite. And finally, I also attended last Thursday one day of the 3-day Smart Cities Conference. That is the Smart Cities Council of the Smart Cities Council had their Asia Pacific conference here in Adelaide, which was a good opportunity for us to showcase our city, but also an opportunity for people here in Adelaide to actually listen about all the innovations that are happening around the world involving smart cities. I partaked in multiple events, got to listen to some very interesting speakers while representing the City of Adelaide. It was a very, very fulfilling week, and not to mention all the stuff that happened behind the scenes. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Deputy Lord Mayor. Any other reports? If not, I'd ask someone move that they be noted. Councillor Noon moved, seconded by Councillor Kouros. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 16, and firstly, Councillor Kouros. 16.1.
You can do it.
Do you have?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Investigating our assets for adaptive reuse aligns directly with our strategic goals and offers numerous benefits that are critical for the long-term sustainability, livability and economic vibrancy of the City of Adelaide. The City of Adelaide Strategic Plan prioritises driving affordable, safe and quality housing outcomes to attract and retain residents within the City of Adelaide and North Adelaide. Adaptive reuse for underutilised buildings is a key strategy in achieving these objectives. The Adaptive Reuse City Housing Initiative, ARCHI, specifically aims to convert underused buildings into new homes, providing a pathway to address housing shortages with fostering sustainable urban development. Investigating our assets for adaptive reuse could unlock the potential for new revenue streams, enhance the performance of older buildings and contribute to the revitalisation of Adelaide's streetscapes. This initiative promotes not only environmental sustainability but also economic growth by making more efficient use of existing resources. While preliminary investigations have indicated limited opportunities for adaptive reuse, this would not deter us exploring this further. The process of reviewing our property strategy provides an ideal opportunity to reassess the potential of these assets. Supporting the investigation of adaptive reuse opportunities within our own property portfolio is a prudent and forward-thinking approach that aligns with our strategic goals, supports sustainability, and has the potential to generate significant community and economic benefits. As leaders of the ARCHI initiative, it is crucial that we demonstrate our commitment by exploring these opportunities, showing that we can overcome the challenges and taking our community along with this important journey. Therefore, it's imperative that we move forward to explore these opportunities in greater detail and lead by example.
Thank you, I know Councillor Noon indicated. Councillor Ho, did you want to speak? No. Councillor Noon, did you have your hand up?
I actually have. I totally support this, but I do have an addition. And the addition is because we're asking for a report, and it's noting that the City of Adelaide owns several, as per the report or the administration comment, it owns several buildings within the City and North Adelaide that provides community benefit and or commercial revenue stream for Council. Therefore, this report I would like to see should include what impact there would be on the community if the ARCHI scheme was applied to these properties. So I just want that included as part of the report.
Yes.
Investigation, Lord Mayor.
Can I just, before I take a seconder, can I just remind members that we're going to have an assessment of our strategic property holdings anyway, and it might be more economical for council administration if they rolled all this into that report rather than actually do a separate report from this, because it has to be maybe thought through in its entirety.
Or that's what the recommendation states, Lord
Yes.
Mayor, that they're bringing it in with
Yes.
that review. So I'm happy with
You're
that.
You're happy with that, I know.
And I don't think we need anything further than, I kept it simple to give the administration the flexibility to bring in that information in that review.
I think that will be, Councillor Noon's response, additions will be part of the report generally, but can I just see if she has a seconder first? I would have thought that. No, just a minute. Sorry, you've got a seconder, Councillor Martin. I'm not sure that it is ultra-vires, sorry.
I have a question to determine whether I will second this, Lord Mayor. Am I to understand that Councillor Couros is moving a motion in public about buildings which would be capable of adaptive reuse, and the administration response is that there will be a reply within our strategic property plan which will be in confidence, and that Councillor Noon is raising the issue of community buildings with a view to having that discussion publicly, not in confidence. Is that correct?
I see the point you're making. This is a matter of public interest. I'm not sure how we can resolve this, Mr. Sedgman, because I think that's a valid discussion.
Through the presiding member, I'd strongly suggest that it's a two-step process. We have committed to a confidential CEO briefing around the property strategy that would be held in confidence, and a report would follow that exploration, that discussion, which would be in the public domain. So I think it's a two-step process. In terms of the proposed amendment, I'd suggest the lead lines of the final paragraph, therefore this, should be deleted, and the report should include.
Can I just ask, for the purpose of grammatical correctness, that we have several buildings that provide without the S on the end, because it is a plural, therefore it should be provide community benefits, all right? Yeah. Can you just get rid of that S? That's okay. Sorry? And we have a seconder, it's Councillor Martin. I think that, I don't think that Councillor Kouros was suggesting we adapt the North Adelaide Library. This was not your suggestion, was it? Okay. Okay. So, can I ask if anyone wishes to comment on the amendment? Councillor Martin as seconder.
Yeah, look, I'll speak briefly about this. I'm quite happy about the proposal, but I am concerned to see that if there is a discussion of council properties, particularly community buildings, it ought to come back to us. Can I ask the administration, though, in line with the Archie scheme, what is the height limit on buildings which would attract our attention, if not our investment?
I recall it's up to 4.
Through the presiding member, my clear understanding, the limit caps out at 4 stories.
And can I ask how many buildings owned by the City of Adelaide, apart from the North Adelaide Library and Community Centre, are less than 4 stories?
We'd have to take that on notice, Councillor,
right.
But we'll absolutely address it as part of the property strategy briefing.
All right. Thank you for that, CEO. And look, I would just say, I know Councillor Kouros is open to converting the North Adelaide Library and Community Centre to housing, as she said. Everything's on the table.
I did not say anything like that. Point of order, Lord Mayor.
Oh,
I think I said I'm open. Personal explanation. The Lord Mayor asked me a question and I said I'm open to whatever proposal the administration brings forward to us. I didn't say that I'm looking on any other building other than what that administration can bring forward to us.
Well, Lord Mayor...
And then it's up to us to make the decision on whether it should or shouldn't.
I apologise for leading everyone astray. Councillor Martin.
Well, Lord Mayor, I'm not open to that, and I don't think any elected member would be open to community buildings being converted from libraries, meeting rooms and the like to housing, unless, of course, I can be persuaded by some extraordinary proposal that will have benefit that far outweighs the good that community buildings do. And so from my point of view, I'd be asking the administration to weigh this up very carefully. Having said that, I do support adaptive reuse. I think it's a grand idea. Lord Mayor, it is your idea, I know, and it's something that this council is pursuing with some relish with the state government and in partnership offering this scheme. If there are buildings that are outside the scope of what I've mentioned, then I'm happy for them to be looked at.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, can I start by making a general statement, and that is that we as elected members should have open minds, and those open minds should change from time to time, depending on what is presented to us.
Hang on, Lord Mayor, personal explanation, please. The criticism is I have a closed mind. I advocate for my community. That is not a closed mind, that is representation.
Thank you. Thank you.
I apologise.
Apology accepted. Because if we cannot change our minds, Lord Mayor, we cannot change the world. And given the housing crisis that we're in, I think we ought to look at this issue in a detailed and a serious manner. Now, Lord Mayor, the Archie scheme, as I understand it, is nothing new, and I know that the past few councils have had a crack at this. They've tried to look at this, but I think what makes this different is that it actually has a champion. It actually has a champion, and that's you yourself, Lord Mayor. You've brought the state government on board, and I believe that if we do want to make a change, we need to lead by example, and I think hopefully if a report comes back with some low-hanging fruit and some opportunities, we should look at that and consider it seriously.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm happy to support the amendment if this is a way forward that that suits the entire council. I think that what I'm trying to achieve here is that we have gotten this far, as Councillor Abrahimzadeh has said. We have entertained this idea many times throughout many councils. However, this is the first time we've got the state government on board, and thank you for that, Lord Mayor. We should be, as pointed out, we are a city that likes to be leaders, and if we need to show people that this can be done and we can do it with our own assets, then we are leading the way. And I thank you, Lord Mayor, for initiating this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Noon, would you like to sum up your amendment? No? All those in favour of the amendment? All those against, that's carried. That becomes part of the motion. All those in favour of the motion? And against, that's carried again. Thank you, members. We'll move on now to 16.2. Councillor Martin.
Lord Mayor, look,
do we have a seconder?
No, I'm just about to say to you, an elected member has asked me to consider some amendments, and so in the interests of this being approved by the council, I will defer it until another meeting.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The motion before this chamber is to honour the life and legacy of Helen Oxenham OAM, an extraordinary activist, feminist and advocate whose tireless work has shaped the landscape of support for women experiencing domestic violence in Adelaide and beyond. The council notes, seeking for the council to note with deep sadness of the passing of Helen. For over 40 years, Helen was a relentless force in advocating for women's rights and fighting with domestic violence, and her contributions has left a mark on our community, and her loss is felt profoundly by all who knew her of her work and dedication. Her commitment to honouring the lives of women lost to domestic and family violence, exemplified through the creation of commemorative art spaces across South Australia. These spaces serve as poignant reminders of the lives lost and as powerful calls to action against the violence that continues to plague our society. Her work in this area not only memorialised the victims, but also brought much needed attention to the issue, fostering great awareness and empathy within the community. The decision from this council to place a Place of Courage memorial at Benitham Park is a fitting tribute to Helen Oxenham's life's work. The memorial will provide a place for healing, grieving, reflection and education. It will stand as a symbol of our city's commitment to supporting survivors of domestic violence and remembering those who have tragically lost their lives. By establishing this memorial in a prominent public space, we ensure that the conversation about domestic violence remains visible and urgent, inspiring ongoing efforts to address and prevent such violence in our community. This motion not only honours Helen's extraordinary life and work, but also reinforces the City of Adelaide's commitment and causes that she so passionately supported. The establishment of the Place and Courage Memorial in Benitham Park will serve as a lasting tribute to her legacy, ensuring that her work continues to inspire and educate future generations. We must continue to uphold the values that she fought for and carry forward her mission to create a safer and more just society for all.
Much the same, but I do want to actually say a few other things. However saddened, we are honoured to acknowledge Helen Oxenham for her unwavering dedication to fighting domestic violence and championing women's rights. I would like this letter to mention that Helen has been a pioneer in this field, advocating tirelessly since a time when society largely turned a blind eye to domestic violence. Her foresight and persistent efforts brought critical issues to the forefront, many of which are only now being addressed by the recent Royal Commission on Domestic, Family and Sexual Violence, led by Natasha Stott-Despoja, who I know her mother was a great friend of Helen. and especially in the area of response, recovery, healing and community government understanding and coordination. Helen's work laid the groundwork for the significant progress we see today, and her legacy continues to inspire and guide us in our ongoing efforts to combat this pandemic and promote equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Lord Mayor.
I'll keep this very brief, and I also acknowledge all the amazing work that Helen has done in that space over the years. It truly is an incredible thing. I just also want to note her solidarity amongst other great causes as well. The night we approved the Place of Courage, thank you, Councillor Couros. We also actually moved a motion, an anti-nuclear motion, and the two groups were outside in the foyer prior to the meeting, and the anti-nuclear group got together to have a photo, and Helen kind of wandered over, and one of her friends and colleagues said, "Oh, are you aware this is a photo for the anti-nuclear group?" And she's like, "Yes, I know. Happy to stand there." And so she joined us for a photo and stood in solidarity. And it's the first time I've met her, to be honest, and it was the last time. And I just really appreciate that generous solidarity of someone with such a strong name recognition, such great respect would lend that to another cause. So I'd like to acknowledge that.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I had the privilege of first meeting Helen about 10 years ago. And you'll note that when we speak about family and domestic violence, really over the past decade, we've been having this conversation publicly. It's an issue that many still in this day think belongs behind closed doors and belongs in a home, and it is the private business of the family and of the people behind that closed door. And the only thing that I can think of is, if we're talking about over 40 years of service, over 40 years ago, now members, imagine having a conversation about family and domestic violence over 40 years ago, when society around you, when people around you were essentially looking at you, and their response would essentially be, "Helen, that's just a domestic." These are the stories that she used to tell me, and I cannot think of a more courageous thing to do than to start a shelter over 40 years ago, when people will look at you and remind you that this is just a domestic and it's nothing that you should be worried about. So yes, her courage, her legacy, all of the work that she's done over the recent years needs to be acknowledged and celebrated. But I would also like to emphasise the fact that over 40 years ago, when she first started doing this work in this sector, that's when she was breaking the glass ceiling, and that's when she was starting this pioneering work.
Only just to say that I attended her funeral last week, and with many thousands of people that were present there, but she also had ex-senators, ministers, and lots of prominent people who all shared a story of how much Helen has influenced them in changing of policies, and also there were a lot of women there who spoke about the open door policy that Helen had in her own home. So she has influenced all policymakers, to the general public, to people that even today are carrying on her work.
Can I thank members, many of whom have campaigned with Helen for many years, so thank you for bringing this forward. I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Deputy Lord Mayor, I think you have a couple coming up now, 16.4 and 16.5.
I would actually like to withdraw it, Lord Member. I'd also like a brief opportunity to make a personal explanation, just 30 seconds, if that's okay.
Withdrawing 16.4?
Withdrawing 16.4, yes, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
Just to say that this is a motion actioning, or starting the actioning of something that isn't in our draft Adelaide Parklands Management Strategy. However, I just want to take the opportunity to actually go out and talk and consult more with the SA netball community, and listen to them more and bring them along for the ride, so to speak. And I just feel that I need to do a bit more work in that area before I come back to the chamber with the motion.
So we'll accept that deferral. Now on to 16.5. The China International Film Festival.
And apologies also, I seek to defer this one. I'm withdrawing the previous one. I'm deferring this one until next meeting, as I don't want to speak on anyone's behalf, but I believe my seconder is not here today, and I want to give him respect.
Thank you. Noted, Deputy Lord Mayor. And Councillor Martin's Street Furniture, 16.6.
Sorry.
Sorry.
And we'll note that you have declared a general conflict.
Thank you.
But will remain in the room. Thank you.
And vote.
And vote, yes. I think we've got one of those, haven't we? Oh, you took it back, sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Sorry,
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Can I just clarify, the text on the screen here is not the motion, I don't believe. This is referring, it's titled correctly, but the contents there, 1 through to 4, is for the China International. Can we just update that, please, before we move on? Thank you.
Yes.
The published agenda is correct, but we seem to have lost the words. We're working on it. We have it in front of us, so I think if we have a seconder. Seconded? Deputy Lord Mayor? Sorry, please carry on. Would you mind speaking?
Certainly, Lord Mayor, would it be helpful if I just read the intent of the motion? We can read it? Okay, that's fine. Okay. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Committee last week and Council confirmed tonight that building lines in Lee Street should remain unobstructed by outdoor furniture. And the reason, Lord Mayor, one of the many reasons stated in the accompanying papers were, as the administration reminded us, our disability and inclusion policy advocates for clear building lines to assist those with visual impairment to navigate streets along building lines. And additionally, there are a host of other regulations that demand that building lines remain clear to assist those with disability to navigate. That's been reinforced, I might add, Lord Mayor, not only by state and federal governments, but by the Human Rights Commission, which has issued an advisory that building lines must be uncluttered to ensure that there is no discrimination against those with vision difficulties or indeed any kind of disability. It's a concept that's understood by most, and yet despite the best efforts of our administration over the years, some businesses in the City of Adelaide and in North Adelaide operating at ground level don't understand their obligation to have a licence for the outdoor furniture and fixtures and to ensure that it is not placed against building lines. Now, this afternoon I sent to elected members a selection of photographs, the majority of which were sent to me by members of the community, taken throughout the city, and which show many, many examples of structures, furniture, A-frames and other signs being placed in such a way that they represent a potential hazard to visually impaired and people with other disabilities. Now, I accept, Lord Mayor, that business owners are, by and large, people of goodwill who would not knowingly put anybody at risk. And so we're left with what appears to be an absence of any understanding of what their obligations are. Now, the remedy that I'm proposing is quite simple, that the administration look at communicating the obligations of businesses who use the public realm for these structures, contacting them at a time of their choosing through council means rather than generating additional costs, to remind them that they need to look out for people with a disability. And that might be, by the way, through council online publications, perhaps even through AIDA, which has good connections with business, and even, if you like, through our placemakers. But it is necessary, I think, to repeat the reminder, to get it out there, to ask businesses to take care and ensure that they do comply so that people aren't put at risk.
Add anything to this? Deputy Lord Mayor? No? If there's anyone who speak against it? Question?
I'm wondering if administration actually speak to other capital cities on how they combat this, because if you go to Melbourne and Sydney, you can tell, well, they have their businesses and the outdoor dining right up against the business itself. Some of it comes out on the footpath, you have to walk around, that's Sydney. Melbourne, they have the laneways in which you can't even access at all. And I'm just wondering what makes us different to over-govern in this area to what those states are?
Thank you, Councillor. We might have to take that on notice because I'm not sure that we have that data.
I'm wondering how they combat the access, the access of disability and why it's different for us.
Mr. Reid.
Readers can answer it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and through the question, we do speak with our colleagues. The short answer that we'd give to the question, Councillor, is that in South Australia we comply with the DDA Act, and that's what we look to reinforce, and so we hold the position to follow the legislation. I can't speak to the reasons or motivations in other capital cities why they don't necessarily follow that through, but can't speak with authority whether they're advising, and there are other issues as to why some of their public domain doesn't comply with federal legislation.
I just have a question. I did share a experience I had on Saturday trying to get up a lane on Saturday late afternoon, and there's no way you could put a pram, a wheelchair, anyone that had vision impaired, they could not actually go up this lane without actually hitting into people. I'm wondering, if we have serial offenders, is there an option to fine these people? Because at the end of the day, they're breaking the law, they're uncompliant. So, and this cannot continue, and these examples are becoming systemic. So I'm just keen on administration's thoughts there.
Mr. Haridis?
I'll take it.
Oh,
through the presiding member, in terms of compliance and regulation, we, as an administration, always apply the 3 E's of enforcement. It's education, it's encouragement, and then it's expiation. So we only go to expiation when we've exhausted the possibilities around the previous 2.
Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I don't think I'll be supporting this because to me it seems a little bit heavy-handed. I thank Councillor Martin for sending the examples through email early this afternoon because that actually gave me an opportunity to engage with one of those businesses to get an understanding of whether if there was a particular reason they were doing it. But I think Councillor Martin actually spoke about this. Some of them don't necessarily realise that they're doing it. And the funny thing is, the business owner's response was essentially, "Has someone made a complaint about me?" And I think that's that's the threshold. So if they find that something that they're doing is either non-compliant or is causing an issue to someone else, then I think we don't necessarily need a heavy-handed approach like this. But if there was a more softer approach, a more educational approach, as we heard from the CEO, I would support that. But for us, particularly for this council, given that we've brought back outdoor dining fees, and now we're starting to essentially remind them that there is legislation and you are breaking it, and for them not to do it in such a way, I don't think it's the right approach.
Councillor Ho.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I also like to stand to speak against the motion, when I first looked at it, I said, well, hang on, like, this is not a matter that just happened yesterday or over the last 2 years. This happened in every single capital city for a very, very long time. And besides that, I mean, looking at the administration's comments, that you need a lot of experts to come into this area. And I actually like the way how the CEO explains. I mean, education, explore, and then but at the end of the day, if they're still not doing what they're supposed to do, then you send them the fine. But by looking at this motion here, I think it's a little bit too much, really. Like, we are sending a message to the business who are already doing quite tough at today's economic. It's another message to them and say, we're not going to support you, we're going to fine you, this is a threat. I just don't feel comfortable about this motion, and yeah, I can't support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kouros hasn't actually spoken yet, so if she would like to.
I thank you, Councillor Abrahimzadeh, for taking the time out to meet with the people and get some clarity in regards to their understanding. And if they're not aware of the rules and regulations, to come across them heavy-handed is unfair. We already have it within our strategic plan that we want this city to be vibrant. We want it to be a city where people come to and wine and dine, and yet we're sitting here and they're doing their utmost best. And most of those businesses were very small businesses, and they're doing their utmost best to do that, to make their business to be vibrant and inclusive for people to wanting to come into and enjoy our capital city. And yet here we are going to serve them notices. We're going to come down heavy-handed where we've already are charging them hefty outdoor dining fees. We've reintroduced the outdoor dining fees, and I'm getting complaints left, right and centre about how much people are paying, the increase in fees. What messages are we sending out to the businesses out there, especially small businesses? And that's what predominantly they are, small businesses that just need administration to go out there and give them guidance on what they need to do within the regulations. And as administration advise, that's what they act to. And I think that we're being very unfair as a council. And I think what we're actually going to do is kill the joy in this capital city.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott and then Councillor Siebentrud.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In the spirit of a few different items tonight where I feel some of these issues could have been resolved probably more efficiently with the undertaking from the administration, I want to pose a question to the administration if it might be possible, instead of seeking a new layer of enforcement or a new layer of policy, that we might seek an undertaking from the administration to undertake a 2 or 4 week, for example, period of education with our enforcement officers or our compliance officers and the relevant businesses in place of this, going through this whole process.
So can I just seek clarification? Would you like that to be an amendment, or are you seeking to replace the whole motion with that undertaking?
I'm asking a question of the administration if it might be possible to have an undertaking to just engage in a short education process.
Through the presiding member, I'm very hesitant to enter the debate, which is what we've been invited to do. There is a motion proposed, moved and seconded. The key words for me in this motion is in the third line. That is, ask the administration to communicate. So there's supplementary matters referred to in the motion, but ultimately I read this motion as one that we're being asked to communicate with the business people who have outdoor dining furniture, fixtures, signage, to provide essentially education and advice. So
I think he means line 3 in the... Can you highlight, ask the administration to communicate?
Yeah. Well, it's only entertaining the possibility, and if education and encouragement doesn't work, that's where we go.
Councillor Kouros is not speaking to the debate. Sorry, Councillor Elliot, did you finish your comments?
If you'll accept that as a question, I might speak against the motion, more in the spirit, not against the intent of the motion, but against the potential pathway to the same resolution.
Thank you. I understand that. Councillor Siebentrid.
Look, I don't want to labour the point, Lord Mayor, but I think words are important here, and we've heard the CEO talk about enforcement versus education. So I have a question of clarification again, and apologies if I'm asking for a repeat of this, but my reading of this is that this is about education and not enforcement. Can I clarify the interpretation of the administration that is correct?
So this is not asking the administration to enter into debate, it's to ensure that the motion actually is unambiguous and they understand what they're being asked to do. Sorry, Mr Sedgman.
Through the presiding member, the key words of direction in this motion ask the administration to communicate. That goes to the first E of enforcement, which is education.
Thank you.
Did you want to speak further, Councillor? Councillor Giles.
I just have a question. Currently, if people don't comply with the regulations in this matter, is there an expiation fee attached to that?
Through the presiding member, there are penalties through various mechanisms. Yep.
In that case, I'd like to speak. I think that this motion is, for me, when I read it, was a reminder of our commitment to having an inclusive city, and an understanding that sometimes that policy is not well known by our business community, and it's an opportunity to remind them of it as well, and the reasons why these rules exist. We have a really strong commitment to people being able to access a vibrant city regardless of their background, regardless of their ability. And so I'm reading this motion as really just reminding people about it, publicising the fact that this is a reason for the rules around this, and also reminding them if they don't comply, we already have an expiation process that we can apply. It's not saying we're going to do that first. It actually is a very mild motion about public education. And if we don't support our own policy and our own bylaws that currently exist by reminding people about them, then we're sending a different sort of message to another group of people, the people with disabilities, who and telling them that we don't care about their accessibility, and we don't care if they can't go down the many lanes and along the streets that they might like to be part of in a vibrant city.
So, can I ask if Councillor Martin would like to sum up?
Lord Mayor. Look, I'm frankly a bit surprised by some of the responses saying what message are we sending to businesses, that we need to go softly, and I don't feel comfortable with this. The fact of the matter is that every person in this room voted in favour of the Council's access and inclusion policy, which has a very specific guideline in relation to this matter. Now, this is not a big stick that's being proposed to be pulled out. It is, as the CEO observed, a request to the administration to communicate to stakeholders our obligation, the City of Adelaide's obligation, to make sure that people are safe when using our streets. I find it surprising that people can overlook and want to overlook people with disabilities for the sake of businesses trading. Trading is a right, there's no question about that, but equally there is a right for disabled people, for people in this city who are trying to navigate our streets to be able to do so safely. And at no point can you ever put ahead of that the personal interests of any business. People have a right to be safe in this city. And if the administration sending a note to businesses through an online communication saying, hey guys, there are rules, did you know, is confronting, then so be it. That's confronting, but it needs to be done.
There's no other comment. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour of the motion as printed? All those against? That is carried. Thank you.
Members, a division has been called in relation to item 16.6. Yeah, Councillor Martin called it.
Sorry.
Please stand in favour of the motion until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Giles, Councillor Stephen-Tripp, Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Martin. Thank you.
You will excuse me for laughing, but most of the photographs I get through my SMS are of Hutt Street, litter and other things on the street. I haven't had any photographs of restaurants, but I look forward to those. We'll move on to 18.1, which is a question notice to receive.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I have just an emergency. I just got a phone call. Do you mind if I leave now?
And on the table, any questions without notice? Councillor Martin.
Oh, look, just for the sake of clarity, Lord Mayor, I appreciate the detailed response from the administration to the question on notice at 18.1. Am I correct in saying
I don't think we're debating it, are we?
No, I'm asking whether my calculations are correct.
Another question, sorry.
Yes. I'm asking if my calculation is correct, because there's no total, that between 2018 and 2022, the loss of parklands is 21,800 square metres, and the return parklands is just 2,891. Would that be the correct mathematics? I don't want to publish that.
I'm afraid I can't calculate.
Get it wrong.
Can I ask through Mr. Sedgman if he's got those numbers? He's getting his calculator.
Have you had a mark with it? Through the presiding member, we'll need to take that question on notice. The reason we need to do so is that the new Women's and Children's Hospital effectively replaces existing built form. We don't have that meterage figure, and therefore we need to provide that in response to your question about the calculation.
Could I just also point out that I think that technically that is not the parklands under our control. Only some of it is under our control, so it gets around these numbers on a technicality. So it's actually quite difficult to compare the numbers.
Lord Mayor, I was actually going to ask whether if we were able to, in providing response back from administration, if we were able to maybe put it in a table that differentiates between what is in our control and what is not.
Lord Mayor, that was not the question. It was simply on the basis of the government's assertion that the Malinauskas government is returning our parklands, that the calculation be delivered. That is all I'm asking for, yes. Not a qualification.
It is a contested number, I'm sorry. May we then move on to 19 and move exclusion. Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Abraham-Zadeh. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Can we clear the gallery, please? It's a very brief item.